And I'm from Columbus, Karma Texan Chuling, located in Columbus, Ohio. And what's so amazing, I have to say, I know so much is going on right now. One small light in the middle of the darkness is our center, which was burnt to the ground 6 years ago, is now complete. It's going to be open very soon to the full public. And yesterday, the firemen that took our flag down, which was the Karmapa's dream, the 16th Karmapa's dream flag. A new flag was put up. Lama Cathy was able to find that fireman, and he put that up. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at that ceremony, but it looks amazing. So you can look up. I think you can look it up in a lot of places to find that. It was on in Columbus, Ohio, NBC4 News, and it was a beautiful story about our flag. So before I get into today's talk, which is on something called the seven branch prayer, and I'm also going to be talking about what is accumulation of merit and sort of and how to mix this with your daily, everyday life, this entire practice, so that it's very easy and very rich, enriching. Um, First, we have to talk about what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia and in the world. It's been a rough last 2 years for everyone. We've fought another type of war with COVID, and hopefully things are looking really good in that front anymore. Though people are still very sick, but not as many. But regarding the Ukraine and Russia, um, the internet has been amazing with Facebook and Instagram and other places sharing. I'm sorry, there's a horn in the background. Sharing all the news, all the outreach for help, with prayers, monetary help, and well wishes. And I just want to, for a moment, relive something. Years ago, I was at KTD Monastery when 9/11 occurred. Our monastery is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from New York City. And Trungpa Rinpoche was there for a very special ceremony. So my husband and I arrived a week early to help with that. And 9/11 happened, I think, on a Tuesday. And we were there. And a few days later, he then gave a public talk. And people actually were able to arrive from New York City. And I will never forget the rest of my life what he said. And it was so stirring and upsetting to people. People actually left the room. He asked all of us to pray for all the victims in New York City, but even more so, the people that had caused this negative karma, that had caused the death. He said, we don't even understand how complicated karma is and how this will not only affect those people, but for generations to come. And people were upset that we were praying for our enemy. But it was something that I really took home with me, because it's very easy for us to pray for people we like, we favor politically, our relatives, we want to be like, that inspire us. And it's much harder to pray for those that we don't care for. So at this time, during today's talk, please hold the Ukraine and Russia in your hearts, and all those people that are so bewildered, that have such negativity that they don't understand, or maybe they don't want to understand the ramifications of war and taking lives in such brutal ways. So if we could hold all of them in our hearts today, pray for all of them. And if this is too uncomfortable for you, don't do it. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to lay this on you. I'm just suggesting what some of the ways that as a Buddhist we look at the world. We try to step back and have a very big view of compassion, though most of us are just pretending we're compassionate, but we're trying. So thank you for listening to me on that account. So moving on, today I'm talking about something called the seven branch prayer. What is it? I would call it a prayer. I'm going to look at my iPad, my other iPad. It is a series of practices that are kind of brought together and put in the form of a prayer. And there's 7 different factors. What are they? They are, I'm going to read to make sure I get them all. Prostrations, or we could also say going for refuge or homage. That's one. The second one is making offerings. Then we confess any wrongdoings. This is really compressed. This is sort of our whole path of Buddhism here in 7 different phases, you might say, or 7 different practices. So we had prostrations or homage. I'm just going to read this. Offerings, confessing past wrong deeds, rejoicing in virtue of yourself and others, requesting the Buddhas to continue teaching the Dharma. The 5th one, or the 6th one, is asking the Buddhas not to leave this world, but continue teaching. And the 7th is dedicating all of the above. And these all build on each other. So the biggest, and you might say the most important one of all, is the very last one, because they just keep getting more and more powerful the way they build. And the Karmapa stated that these 7 branches of the prayer embody all the practices of the accumulation of merit that we do. And in a few minutes, I'm going to talk a little bit more, in a lot more detail, what is accumulation of merit. So what is the purpose of this practice? It is to accumulate merit. Accumulate virtue includes merit and wisdom. And most of us are still at the level of merit. So we're going to accumulate that by doing this prayer. And where do we find these prayers? Sometimes it's just one-liner in a sadhana. So most of these are in our sadhanas, which were from the Tibetan tradition. So these are our prayers that we do. And we do them with their visualizations that we often do with deities. Not only those, but primarily in Chenrezi, Amitabha, Green Tara. Green Tara has some very elaborate 7-branch prayers where it's more than just one little line. It's a whole paragraph. It's really beautiful. In the Nune practice, which is the 1,000-arm Chenrezi practice, let's see where else. In Ngundro, during Guru Yoga, we do this. If any of you are doing Riro Sanchu, which is the Mountain Dharma smoke offering called Song, it is in there. And it is in the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. He has whole sections on this prayer. So this is something so how do we use it? So first of all, I said it's basically a whole list. It's almost like our bucket list of what we need to accomplish in order to become a Buddha. So let me go back one more time. So past Buddhas and Bodhisattvas reached awakening through purifying their negative karma and through accumulating merit and wisdom. So that was the whole way. And so this and all the practices by Shakyamuni Buddha focus on that. So this, in terms of the roots of this practice, maybe we should talk about its history. It's very inspiring. His Holiness Gyawa Karmapa, the 17th Karmapa, traced the lineage of this prayer from the sutra tradition that belongs to the Mahayana, which is found in the sutra called Gandu. It's Vyuha, Gandavahu. And the sutra contains a chapter known as the Aspiration for Excellent Conduct, which gives the clearest presentation of the 7-branch prayer. So this is not a modern prayer. This is an ancient prayer. So what's maybe even more striking is that not only are we doing these prayers, but these prayers have been handed down for centuries. So think of how many saints and sages did these prayers, how many regular practitioners did them. And it is said that the situation we are in now, I'm going to use my own example, living in a comfortable, quiet home. I have my windows open. I don't hear any warfare. I hear birds chirping. I can see trees. It's early spring, ready to pop. This very quiet, wonderful space for practice and the opportunities I've had of all the teachers I've had physical hardships and I've been able to get over them and learn from them because of my teachers. In part, this might be my positive karma, but maybe as much so, it's because people from the past made aspirations by accumulating their merit, doing these prayers and offering them not just for them, but for all living beings in the past, present, and future. So today we're going to think really in a big scale. This is a very vast concept of thinking, of praying for beings in the past, the present, and the future, of thinking, filling the sky with millions of Buddhas from the past, present, and future, millions of teachers. I mean, you can really get really wide in this practice, really vast. If that's overwhelming for you, then you just bring it down and focus on one thing. But it's very astounding sometimes to think how amazing this is. So moving on a little bit. So I talked a little bit about the history. And again, the purpose. I'll read a few more of these by the Karmapa. This prayer is found in our daily practices so that we may begin to train our minds to accumulate merit and wisdom and for the benefit of all living beings. And this practice of the seven branch prayer is often introduced when people are taking the Bodhisattva vow because they make this aspiration during the Bodhisattva vow or before then. So, and it's also what you would call maybe an insert sometimes in different sadhanas. So our modern history is Kala Rinpoche and the 16th Karmapa, when they were teaching Buddhism in the 70s and 80s, they inserted this prayer. They decided to insert this in our Chenrezi practice that we do in our monastery, usually nightly, that we do at our center. I think we did it today, and we do it several times during the week. But a lot of people do this practice every day. So it's rather astounding to think that His Holiness had a hand in that to make sure that we really accumulate merit. And as we go on, I'm going to read a few of these. In fact, I have several references. So if you're ever interested in the references that I use, you can always contact the center, or I could just simply maybe talk about them towards the end of this talk. But one of them that I really love, I didn't use a lot of, but I have in the past, obviously. This book is pretty marked up. This is a book by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche called Chenrezi. His Spanish-speaking students wanted a teaching on it, and they were so kind and also translated it into English. So the back section's in English. And Rinpoche there talks about the seven branch prayers because he goes through the entire sadhana. Normally, when you learn a sadhana, you have usually three things. You get an empowerment at some point. You get a reading transmission called a lung, and you get an instructional transmission called a tree, which Khenpo Rinpoche often gives. So often these books are actually his instructional transmission. And I thought maybe with a simple example, I would read to you I should first preface. The Tibetan language is very, very beautiful. It's a little richer than ours. So let's first do the first one. I said the first one was prostration, right? In this practice that we do almost daily for some of us, the translation is, with deep and clear faith, I prostrate to the noble and powerful Chenrezi and to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times. So that's pretty simple. The second one I said was offering. I make offerings, both actual and imagined, of flowers, incense, lights, perfume, food, music, and much else to the assembly of noble ones. Please accept them. And the third limb or branch that I'm going to talk about today is, I talked about this the last time I talked on confession. So I'll be kind of do a really little talk on that. But the third one is confession. And in the Chenrezi Sadhana, it says, from beginning this time until now, I confess all the 10 unvirtuous acts and the 5 acts of immediate consequence, all negative actions that I have committed while under the influence of mental afflictions. And the fourth one, I rejoice in the merit of whatever virtue all the different Buddhas have and ordinary people have gathered throughout the three times. And the fourth, please turn the wheel of Dharma, of the greater and lesser vehicles, to meet the variety of motivations and of different minds of living beings. Next, until samsara is completely emptied, I beseech you not to pass into nirvana, but to look with great compassion on all living beings caught in an ocean of suffering. And the last one was dedication of merit. May whatever merit I have accumulated become the cause for enlightenment of all beings. Not taking long, may I soon become a magnificent guide for all living beings. This is the biggest glitch of using other people's iPads. They constantly turn off. There we go. Okay. So that's just a little example. How do you use the seven branch prayer? You can use it in your sadhanas, as I mentioned. But a lot of people actually study this. They don't just, when you're doing it. I liked what the Karmapa said about this. Gyalwa Karmapa said so nicely. He said that we chant this prayer so often, we think it's easy and simple and just whiz by it. I put in the word whiz. We just fly by it. We just say it because it's part of the sadhana. And sometimes it's actually like only 2 lines. It just says, with homage, prostration, or homage, offering, prostration. It lists them really just 1 or 2 words per 7 branch, and that's it. So you might not think much about it. And I was thinking what I wanted to teach, and the last time I taught on confession, and the more I learned about confession, I thought we should look at the whole package, because this really is a package towards awakening and helps us along the way. So how would you study this? Well, you would read some of these different books, and you would go over them, and you would look at the different features. And when you read a teaching by Khenpo Rinpoche or His Holiness Dalai Lama or other teachers that are very qualified, they don't just say, and then you do this. They go through it with great Buddhist logic, and they go through it kind of slowly and take it apart and then put it back together again. And in doing so, it becomes very rich and full of examples, very practical daily examples. One example that is used a great deal when they talk about this practice of the 7 branch prayers has to do with growing a seed. It's so simple. So when you grow a plant, let's say I love kale lately. So let's say I want to grow kale. So I can't go out last winter and put the seed in the soil because the sky was too dark, it's too cold, and maybe I didn't have a nice enough soil, or maybe too much rain or not enough rain. So whenever you plant a seed, and we're talking about here is the seed of awakening, the seed of developing bodhicitta, the seed of accumulating merit for the benefit of all living beings, we first have to have the right conditions. And so what are those conditions? They would be to have your resources of learning about this practice. So if you can, and I really like to give you the homework, because I'm going to teach this twice. Today I'm teaching part of it, and we're going to go through it. Again, I'll do the second half next month. So the homework would be, please spend a little time, and I can give you some resources to read, and really embrace this. Look at this. So if you're at home and you have 10 minutes, Kala Rinpoche used to say, to learn practices or to learn the language or something, just have a little, like if you were learning Tibetan language, to have that word, some words in your pocket on little cards. If you're at a bank, well, this is the old days, when you would stand in line at a bank or wherever you are, just pull them out and look at them for a moment. And I want you to stop while you're driving, do this. But we have so many resources now. We have amazing computers and internet and our phones. My phone is sort of like my main office. And I have all kinds of quotes on here and all kinds of ideas. And so not only that, but you can also be using this as a tool to really learn this. Like, put it on your calendar. This week I'm going to learn about what does it mean to really pay homage? What does it mean to make an offering? So that's just a suggestion. So moving on for a second, I always move around, don't I? I'm sorry. And I like to say for a moment, please, at this moment, I confess all of my wrongdoings. I'm so sorry you're stuck with me today. But I hope what you take out of this is to learn where you can find the genuine resources to learn these very profound prayers. And I confess in any way if I've learned this incorrectly or put my ego into this. So we talked about where we found this, and we talked about the history. So again, going back to the whole point of this practice is, what is accumulation of merit? What does that mean? So merit is a virtuous act or virtue, or good karma. That's energy generated by positive actions, using your body, your speech, and your mind. In particularly Tibetan Buddhism, we're always talking about the body, speech, and mind. And it's important to understand the essentials of accumulation of merit. So merit, of course, is all the goodness that you've generated through your actions. And accumulation is just how to not accumulate it for yourself. In order to make this so that it truly accumulates each time you offer this up, so it no longer is just ordinary merit. It becomes a true accumulation of merit. Now, we have three objects that we make these offerings to, or we make the accumulations to. One is the superior or the enlightened beings, the Buddhas, the Dharma, the Buddhas, their teachings, the community of those that are following. We make offerings, and all right, let me just go through the three objects of accumulation merit. There's the superior or exalted ones, the ordinary or beings that are more at our level, and we particularly talk about our parents in this, which we don't always talk about, are our parents. And the next one is the like it's considered lesser. These are beings or people that have not yet had the opportunity to find the Holy Dharma or to work on themselves in any way, that are completely bewildered by samsara, by the world, and are not yet on an active virtuous path. So, but they're all our guests, you might say. So, looking at the Buddhas and maybe I should just back up for a second. So, those are the three objects for accumulation of merit. How do we do this? One way we actually do the accumulation of merit, we make offerings, we pray in sadhanas, we say mantras and praises to enlightened beings. We do this with formal and informal practices. So when you do the 7 branch prayers, I mentioned very formal prayers we do. You can do the 7 branch prayers using your own words and your own style, however you wish to do it. And I remember so many times Khenpo Rinpoche, before he started any teaching and when he finished every teaching, he would compose a very different dedication. Always different, but it had to do with that moment, that time in our lives, or if something was going on in the world like today, and the material that we were learning. I also remember Lama Cathy Wesley so kindly told me, I was once with her when I was very new to Buddhism. We took a walk down the road, and it's very beautiful in the upstate New York at our monastery outside of Woodstock, New York. And I commented on the beauty of the trees. I have a degree in horticulture, so I have an affinity for being outdoors, especially looking at trees. And she said that whenever we see something very beautiful, she said always to dedicate that to those that have not yet seen that beauty. And that struck me, and then I really started to play with it a lot more. And I think that's what's so amazing about this practice today. It's vast, and it's very much your practice. This is going to be something that you can do 24/7 that will completely change how you look at your practice, because it's so personal. And here goes the iPad again. I'm going to have to learn how to set this a little longer. So we talked about the objects, and Rinpoche talked a lot about, of course, we do this all the time. We know that we focus a lot on the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas because they're enlightened, meaning they they live from the experience of their true nature. They are there to solely serve all living beings. Whenever we think of them, they are here. That's kind of part of their contract of being a Buddha. The moment you think of a Buddha that you need help, they're actually there. Probably, I can't see them, of course. I'm pretty ordinary. But the blessings are also there. And that confidence is there. And this practice, particularly, I think, builds up a great deal of confidence in this. So that's one group that we talk a lot about. Let's talk about the ordinary. We don't talk about our parents much. And Rinpoche said that we should really start focusing a little bit more on, when we do these practices, we offer this up not only to the superior, but to all the levels, all living beings. And our parents, Rinpoche taught this. He did a wonderful little booklet on the two accumulations of merit and wisdom. This is from our bookstore in upstate New York, Namse Bangso. And he talked at length about the sacrifices our parents gave us to have the body we have, particularly our mother. The financial sacrifices our family did for us. I know I had problems when I was a kid. My parents, I'm certain, went into debt to take care of my physical problems. I will forever be grateful to them. I'm able to move because of them. And I'm sure, I know, and Rinpoche talked about, in America, he was very surprised how we have parent issues and we like to be so independent. But he said it's very important as we get older to spend time and try and understand maybe why our parents did what they did, and forgive them and have profound gratitude around every aspect, because they had everything to do with your strengths, what your virtues are. They helped you have an education. I mean, our parents do a lot for us. I don't have children, but I'm always amazed the sacrifices people do for their children. It's so inspiring. So we always think of them, because remember, our other little practice, what I'm not talking about today, but I try to always remember, is to be reminded that all living beings have been our parents in past lives. So particularly the parents that we have in this life, to try and understand them, especially as we get older and they get older, and use that time to spend with them. And then next is the everyone else, those beings that have not yet connected with the Dharma, that are in need of help of any kind. If you cannot physically give them help, you always pray for them and keep them in your prayers. Someday they will meet the opportunities to awaken. Then moving on, so those were the proper motivation. And I like to also talk about, now we're talking, sorry, I'm shifting from accumulation of merit in our group who we're praying for. And now a factor of that is dedication of merit. So when we are doing these practices, when we see something very special or we've done something virtuous, I'm going to give an example. All of you today has spent, or wasted, I hope spent, some useful time here thinking about virtue and merit and positive karma and how to help other beings. Well, you've taken time out of the rest of your day, so that's the type of generosity. So I would offer that up. I mean, we're always offering that up. So at the end of the day, we should take a moment and don't think, oh, look at me, I'm a good student. No. Let go of that. Let go of it and offer it up. That's kind of our motto. All right, so Let's focus for a moment on dedication of merit. We always do this at the end of whenever we've done something virtuous. Usually after sadhana, there's a special prayer. There's our famous Sonam Di prayer. And they're just such beautiful prayers. But you can use your own words whenever you're sitting on a bus or subway or plane and you see an extraordinary virtuous act, even a little virtuous act of someone. I love it's when somebody who normally would not be generous is generous with their time or their space or their kindness. And you offer that up. You take a moment, even witnessing them, to offer that up so that for them and for all living beings that someday may experience that type of generosity. So it's something you can constantly use. So that's called dedication of merit. So the merit we already talked about is virtue. And we dedicate it. We just simply let go. And we don't just let go of it and forget about it. We have a very systematic prayer style that we do. So after accumulation of merit, we say, this is a style I'll show you. May every living being experience the ultimate stage of awakening. That's one style. And this makes the merit inexhaustible, indestructible. Because instead of, pardon me, as I said earlier, I just opened the window and I think there's a lot of life going on outside. So when we're finished with a practice or we've seen something amazing, we offer this up to everyone. And it makes the merit inexhaustible so that, let's say, there was a really good Q&A where someone said, what if I have a really virtuous time and then I kind of blow it 1 month. I start being very negative or I do not the greatest things. And Rinpoche said, well, if you've dedicated that merit already, it's kind of in the bank, you might say. So we don't worry about that. But for a moment, I like to talk about kind of how vast our offering of merit can be. So not all of us are bazillionaires, so we can offer amazing amounts of offerings or build stupas or dharma centers or things. And so I think sometimes people feel discouraged, and you shouldn't, because remember, we're going to talk about offerings in a moment. And these are real and imagined. But a wonderful dedication of merit prayer was done. There was, this is a story that Khenpo Rinpoche has told many times during the life of Shakyamuni Buddha. At one point, he and his entourage, is probably hundreds of monks, they go to Vaisali every year to do a summer retreat because of the weather changes and it's better there to do retreat. And a king had said, come to my kingdom. I will feed you and house you and provide whatever you need for all those months. That's usually a couple of months. It was for a lot of people. And so the king was like, oh, I get to host the Buddha. I mean, how many of us, when we're around a Lama visit, think, oh, well, you have to give that up. So, sitting outside the gate of where all this is going on were two beggars. And one of the beggars was so inspired. He offered up all the merit of the king, of the past, present, and future. And he also very quietly made the aspiration, someday may I be as wealthy as him, so I can also serve the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And he also offered the merit up of the queen, saying that he was so inspired how supportive she was and how hard she had worked. So at the very end of the whole event, oh, and so why were the beggars there? Because that's usually where all the crumbs and the leftover food went. So that's what they ate. They didn't eat off the gold plates. They just ate, well, or bowls, whatever they gave the monks. They just ate the scraps. Now the other monk was a little bit more disgruntled, but we're not going to talk about him today. That's too sad. Let's just talk about the sweet monk. So then, after several months, at the end of the ceremony, it was very traditional for the Buddha to give thanks to the donors. And the very first one he gave thanks to, and he offered the merit, was for the beggar. The king was rather enraged. What beggar is he talking about? And the second person the Buddha offered the merit for was for the queen. And the third was the king, because he had to mention the king at some point. So the king actually asked him, why wasn't I first on the list? And he explained how genuine this beggar had dedicated the merit for everyone, and particularly of the king, dedicating his merit and not having any jealousy, not wanting that, just with deep gratitude that he was able to serve so many people. And then he said the queen was second because she didn't have very much pride. She was very humble. And the king was third because he had a lot of pride. The story later goes on. I don't know the timeline later, but it is said that the beggar was given a great deal of food after all this in celebration, and he got drunk. He slept, laid down under a tree for over a day. And because of the genuine blessings he had received from the Buddha, the tree was said to move its branches to keep him in a shadow, not to have any sunburn or any discomfort. And when he awoke, he had received so many blessings. People went to him realizing that he was very special. The king by then was gone, and he was made the king. And then later, he hosted the Buddha. So that is an example of very, very deep style of dedication of merit. And before I get into the 7 branches, wow, I thought I would run out of time today. I'm just talking away here today. I thought for a minute I would give you my formula for how to dedicate merit. So this is the type of mind training. This is something you should start playing with. This is the real homework. I want you to play around with what do I see in front of me, and how can I dedicate that and make it very beautiful so it inspires you to do even more of these. So one of the components should be something beautiful that maybe you're familiar with. You know, a lot of these in the offering section, they mention flowers, incense, food, all these different things. Often they mention the sun and the moon and the stars and oceans. That's not unusual. So it should be something beautiful, real and imagined. You can describe it a little bit if you wish. You can expand the amount so that it's not just, a vase of flowers on my shrine. It's fields of flowers or planets of flowers. Then the audience will be the people in the past, present, and future. All living beings, not just humans, all living beings in all realms of the 3 times. So that's just an idea. So now we're going to move on to talk about 2 of the 7 branches, and then I think we'll do our exercise of playing with that formula. Oh, what the heck, let's do it first. Let's spend a moment today. Let's pick something beautiful. So, the image right now in the Ukraine is sunflowers. They're so beautiful. So may the Ukraine and all the people there and all the Russian troops put down their arms, have peace, and may all the area that was torn up be filled with sunflowers. May all the people be healed, strengthened, and become more compassionate and help all living beings in the past, present, and future. And may all their virtue continue to help all living beings. So there's no more suffering in the world. So there'll be no more wars, no more conflicts, no more loss of life. So that would be one style of dedication of merit. You can make it very simple. Looking out today, it's so beautiful out. Well, it was. The sky is so blue. Just think may all beings enjoy such spaciousness of all times. And as I said earlier, you see an act of kindness, you offer that up for that person, for the recipient of the kindness, and may that kindness spread to all living beings. And you could just really make this very rich. So there's a few examples. So now let's talk about the 7 branches. We haven't really delved into them a little too much. So we talked about the accumulation. We talked about the purpose of doing the 7 branch prayer is to accumulate merit. We talked about what accumulation of merit is for all living beings, and particularly there's 3 different groups you see we offer this to sometimes. And we make these offerings using practices, and prayers, or aspirations. And at the end of those events, we dedicate all that merit so it becomes inexhaustible. It will never fail. It will always be there to continue spinning and giving that to everyone in the universe. Now, exploring the 7 branches, the first one is homage, prostrations, or refuge. Sometimes it's considered actually separate. It's kind of interesting, and sometimes they're organized a little differently depending on the lineage. And sometimes the first one is called prostration, and that is done in all the others. So the first is prostration, and the second is offerings. And I think it's interesting that for most of us that have, like I have a small shrine, I keep forgetting it's backwards and back of me here. Up there is a bit of a shrine, some shrine bowls. And when I open my shrine in the morning, I make offerings. And when the simple act of offering water in your shrine, you should imagine that it is the purest of all substances and that it goes throughout the universe, healing all living beings or taking away the thirst of all living beings. So I fill 3 shrine bowls with water. Then I do prostrations. So or prostration. And when I do that prostration, we sort of have a special way to prostration is where you actually physically do a prostration if you can. If not, you do it mentally. And you would stand up in front of your shrine and you take your hands and you cup them a little bit so you're holding a lotus bud in the middle, and you put your hands on top of your forehead. On top of your head, at your forehead and your throat. Some people do forehead, throat, heart. Either of those is fine. I like forehead, throat, and heart. This represents body in the forehead, speech in the throat. The heart is the mind. So body, speech, and mind. So we do that, or you can say Om, Ah, Hum, and then you go down on the floor. So your hands and your knees and the tops of your feet touch the floor, and you can stretch all the way out. And if you can, if not, you just go down on all fours and then come back up. But normally we go all the way out to do a full long prostration. We have a short and a long. So you can do either of those. And that is what a prostration is, just to let you know. So why is it that we prostrate? According to the Karmapa, the 17th Karmapa, is to show respect by putting the 5 main points of our body to the ground, while we are concentrating on the admirable qualities of the person to whom we are prostrating. Now, I have to mention, who are we prostrating to? We're prostrating to all the Buddhas of the past, present, and future. So even though I'm standing in front of my little cherry wood shrine in back of me, if I can, I'm envisioning the entire sky is filled with Buddhas. Entire sky, the past, present, and future of the 10 directions. So it can be pretty big. And if that's overwhelming, just think of a Buddha or think of your teacher, whoever it is that inspires you deeply. So that's how we do prostration, and then we stand up. And if you're doing practices such as mudra, we actually do it with a mantra. But in this case today, we're not. This is just 7 branch prayer. This isn't just. This is the 7 branch prayer, and opening your shrine is what we were kind of backing up to. But that is an example of that. So moving on again. So remember that this is a prayer where primarily, even though the first 2 aspects, prostration and offering, are a little bit more physical, you're offering things on your shrine, but still it's a mental exercise. So you prostrate. I work in the hospital too much. You prostrate using your body, as I mentioned. You prostrate doing your speech, um, referring to the verbal praises and tribute that you make, particularly towards your teacher. It would be in the prayer also. We're back to seven branch prayer. And the prostrations are using your mind by mentally you're showing respect and paying homage to that which inspires you so deeply to become awakened. And when we make an authentic prostration, our minds are filled with genuine respect. We should feel and be very moved. And sometimes you have to sit down for a moment and really think about what it is that your teachers have given you to make you feel such deep gratitude. We talked about our parents, but our teachers have essentially breathed Dharma into us, have fed us with Dharma and filled us with that nectar and shown us the path of loving kindness, compassion, and how to be very honest about who we are and what we can become. And we're very blessed in that way. So the next are offerings. I still have time for this. And by the way, all of these seven have antidotes. So the practice of prostrations or homage, the antidote is pride. It's to take to get rid of pride. Offerings obviously would be miserliness. So we learn how to offer. By making offerings to the Buddhas and enlightened beings, according to our capacities, we accumulate vast merit because they're enlightened beings. We talked about them earlier. The real ones, usually things that are very beautiful, like flowers, incense, food, our physical body in service of the Dharma, and imagine the entire universe, unlimited beauty, stars, moons, oceans, galaxies. And how do we offer? We offer like that beggar with such vast, pure motivation, or are we a little more miserly? Even if you're miserly, still pretend you can do it. Still try it a little bit. You don't have to be perfect. None of us are. But just doing the exercise is a type of training. And lastly, what's really important to note, the Buddhists don't need any of these things. They're beyond this type of attachment. They don't need this, but they're very pleased to see us practice and make unimaginable offerings because it shows that we're opening up, we're waking up, we're developing bodhicitta, we're doing selfless acts for all living beings. And the more you do, the better it gets. It's pretty amazing how it makes you keep growing. It's a very interesting engine almost, the seven branch prayer. And don't forget, I mentioned use your creativity, especially when you're studying this. Do some exercises. Try and read prayers. Sometimes you'll read very inspiring. I'm just trying to think if I have anything right around me. No, this is sitting. My iPad sitting on a beautiful book. It said it was so beautiful when they mentioned their style of seven branch prayer. They even talked about the lotus bud in your hand, holding the lotus and filling the sky with lotuses that you're offering. I mean, you can imagine the sky is raining in flowers and beauty. There's no limit to what you can think of. The last one I'll talk about today is confession of negativity. So consider since beginningless time that we've created negativity of the 10 unwholesome actions. What are they? Taking lives or killing. This is kind of heavy, but I'll go quickly. The 10 unwholesome actions that we've all done since beginningless time. We've killing, stealing, adultery, lies, disharmony, and the Sangha. So there's 3 of body, 4 of speech, 3 of mind. So for the body, it would be to kill, steal, or adultery. For speech, lying, disharmony in the Sangha, harsh speech, and gossip, and of the mind, envy, ill will, and wrong view of the Dharma. We also have something called the 5 acts of immediate consequence, which would be this is on purpose, killing one's mother, father, an arhat, drawing blood from a Buddha, or creating schism in a community, a Buddhist community. So, how do we confess? I talked a little bit about this the last time I spoke, which was we can use very formal prayers and also acts of aspirations. So the formal prayer I mentioned was the confession of the 35 Buddhas. And then there's also another beautiful confessional prayer. I can't remember the name of it at this moment, I'm sorry, but that's also very beautiful. Also, another style of confession is also to speak with your gurus, your teachers. If there's something you did when you were younger or want to know how to process that, you do that. And we don't talk in terms of sins the way maybe other religions do. We've done things in the past, and a lot of these practices will purify that. And we're not to just be overburdened with that. We have enough neuroses. We just need to move through this and start living a much more virtuous life. So we do study what we've done. And we all have traits and neuroses. We all carry around anger or jealousy or miserliness, whatever we have. But as you see, the 7 branch prayers kind of takes care of a lot of these and starts working on us very slowly. Let's see, now, when you do confession, and when you do formal confession, this is kind of built into the prayer. There's kind of the 4 powers. There's a lot of different ways to. I like when they use all R's, but I can't find them all. You would have deep remorse. You sort of reflect on what you've done, have remorse for that. You have resources or support who you're confessing to, which would be to the Buddhas, particularly the 35 Buddhas of confession. You refrain from doing that again, and you resolve never to repeat that. And you really study why. It's not just, oh, bad me, I shouldn't do that. You need to realize you might have tendencies for certain things. This is a different part, but I'm going to mention it. Rinpoche, in one of his stories, recounts he was talking about his parents, and he said he had profound respect for his parents. In Tibetan culture, the mother is kind of more the warm one, and the father's a little bit more disciplinarian. My family was opposite, but everyone's different. And he said that at one point he thought his father was going to kill him. He was very young, and he said he beat him so that he saw stars. And what had happened is Khenpo Rinpoche stole a mala from the neighbor, a beautiful mala. And his father was incensed. And Rinpoche said, looking back, he was so grateful that his father kind of nipped in the bud his tendency of wanting to take things. And so he said, of course, in America, you would never do that now. But I know in my generation you did. But so these practices are something to note, that we have habits and tendencies, and that's why we're still here from beginningless time, why we're not fully awakened yet. And all these practices are kind of reality checks, not to make us feel bad, but just to make us realize, oh, I have some work to do, and that's no problem. Okay, so I think I'm coming to the end of this. So I'm going to just for a moment mention my resources. The first was the 2 accumulations I mentioned, of Merit and Wisdom by Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, his book Chenrezig, and he also has a nice section on all of these, the 7-branch prayer, in a booklet called Transforming Mental Afflictions. I'll talk about it more the next time. It has another title. There was a beautiful version of Shanti Deva I studied by Khenpo David Karma Chappell, Entering the Way of the Bodhisattva by Shanti Deva. And the last one was an article on YouTube I found by his His Holiness, sorry, I just found on the internet by the Karmapa, 17th Karmapa, and it was called Seven Branch Prayer Embodies the Essence of Practice. It was beautiful, just like 3 or 4 pages. Again, and the last one is 17th Karmapa. Just put that in and put in Seven Branch Prayer. And it's a small article, a teaching that he gave. So for a moment, in lieu of all that we covered today, which was a lot, and I thank you so much for your patience, let's just recap for a second. We do the 7 branch prayer in order to generate an immense amount of accumulation of merit and dedicate that merit. So as we end today, another example of a dedication of merit right now, instead of us doing a formal prayer, let us sit up straight, relax our body, just breathe. Let's take a moment to dedicate all the goodness, the wisdom, the healing of the entire universe, particularly that towards peace and love, and send that out throughout the world today, the entire world, to all living beings. May they experience profound peace and love and wisdom, contentment. May warfare stop in its tracks, and may love prevail. And we send that out not just in our situation, but to the past and also to the future, for everyone, every living being. May they someday become awakened Buddhas. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Today, I believe, is March 6th, 2022. Thank you so much for being here. And good luck with your practice. And remember, start playing around with beautiful dedications of merit, especially using the elements of nature and things that are really on your mind and in your heart. Thank you again. Bye-bye.